What's going on, folks? This is Coach Marcus for Pro Fan Talk. Doing my live Mondays with Marcus. Won't be here too long, but it's nice. Figured I'd come outside on my lunch break. I used to call this lunch break take, but I'm gonna start going with mornings with Marcus. I'm gonna try to go every Monday around 12:30, and then go for about 20-30 minutes max. You know. Even if that long. Today, don't have much for you. Just kind of going over. I was taking some notes and looking at my Eagles to watch. Everybody's, I hope, at least done going gaga over the OTAs. And obviously, the countdown, we're less than 100 days from camp. I believe we are 85 days, I think. Somewhere around there. That number's probably off a little bit. But I'm looking at my players to watch. And these are pretty much all the new players. For me, and this is just my opinion, put your thoughts in the comments. Even though I'm going live, immediately this will be up on my YouTube channel. I figured this was easier than just recording and trying to edit on a lunch break. Just go live and it is what it is. But my first Eagle to watch is Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean is, in my opinion, he's going to become the new leader of that defense. Linebacker is typically the quarterback of the defense anyways. So you go back to his history. He was one of the captains on that Georgia team for the national championships. So he's used to being in that position, calling the plays and kind of directing traffic on that defense. And I think Sean Desai is going to have him ready as much as, or more important, having a year with Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Slay, Bradbury, Avonte Maddox. I don't think Avonte Maddox gets enough credit for being the leader on that team. His presence was missed last year when he got hurt. So, and he came back strong, and hopefully he'll be another mentor to Sidney Brown. We'll talk about Brown next, but like a lot of people don't give him enough credit for him doing the things he did and being a voice in that locker room. But having said all of that, you're talking about he's going to be leader of the defense. He's going to be calling the plays, and he's going to be running the show. And I think he's ready for that. And I keep saying this, and, you know, I'm just going to keep pounding that drum. I think a lot of people will be even more upset with Gannon because we didn't play him more last year. Regardless of what the situation is, when you got talent, you play talent. And I think Howie Roseman, more than anybody else, has finally figured out that, yes, you got to have the contracts. Yes, there are some things and some requirements you have to meet contractually and how some of these players play to live up to those contracts. However, everybody that's in the NFL shouldn't be. And there are a lot of people that should be that aren't. So what you got to do is, regardless of what the contract says, regardless of the name, whatever the name says, the best teams are the guys that put the best players on the field to play. And if you go back and you look at those Jimmy Johnson teams, you look at those Belichick teams, you look at those Bill Parcells teams, to me, those are the coaches in the NFL history who didn't make concessions on having a big name and stuff like that. They put the guy on the field who was the best on the field at that position. And that's why they had success. And I think those tendencies, they get a little bit worn out today because of social media, because the national media is 24/7 now on the teams, where back in the day it wasn't. Even when I came up, we thought it was intrusive because I came out, I was a rookie in 93. So from 93 to 97, that was pretty much the height of the ESPN highlight era. Jordan started it in like '84 because everybody had highlights of Jordan and the dunks and all of that kind of stuff. But it translated into everything else with the hard hits and the knocked out segments, jacked up segments that were on ESPN. All of those are from the highlight stage. And with that much information available and that much media coverage available, it's always going to be there. So right now, I think Nakobe Dean is going to take over. I don't think he's been there long enough in the locker room to really have that voice. But to make that transition quickly, it has to be on the field first. You can't be a rah-rah guy and not playing. You got to put it down on the field first. And that's really at any level, but especially when you're talking about at the NFL level. So I think Nakobe Dean is going to be one of the guys to watch this year, and I think he's gonna put it down this year. Number 2, like I said earlier, Sidney Brown. Sidney Brown is going to end up being one of the steals of this draft. Didn't have a lot of fanfare at Illinois, besides from the people at Illinois. And you look at guys like this with the way he was playing, like what didn't he do that didn't, I don't know, move him up in the draft? Was he not fast enough? Did he not have enough picks? Like what was it that made everybody sleep on him? And I think he's going to be one of those guys where next year or 2 years down the road, when they revisit the draft, everybody likes doing that. They like, going back and looking at the drafts with hindsight and saying, okay, now by the way this guy's plays, he should be a first rounder. So I'm thinking Sidney Brown is going to be one of those guys where you go back and look 2 years from now, he's going to be a solid player, and they're going to be like, how did this guy slip as far as he slipped? So we'll see when it comes to that, man. He's explosive, especially to the ball carrier. He can get to the ball and disrupt the ball carrier. He plays very smart in the secondary, because I noticed, look at a lot of his highlights, he has very good body position when he's trying to do the pass breakups. He's smart enough he's not trying to go for the pick every play, but he is trying to separate the man from the ball. And I'm not talking about laying a big hit on the guy. I'm talking about getting position where he can get his hand up there and disrupt the receiver's opportunity to catch the ball cleanly. And he has a lot of pass breakups, and he's just, gets himself in the right position where he can make that happen. So I'm looking for Sidney Brown to really surprise some people and raise a lot of eyebrows. And really, that's going to put some pressure on Reed Blankenship. And, I'm a Reed Blankenship fan, because I think Reed Blankenship stepped in and did his job. And I think he earned this spot. But I think Sidney Brown's going to be good. But, Reed Blankenship is the guy in that spot. Maybe they would move him somewhere else, or I don't know how that works, because all of that stuff can change on a dime, especially before you get into camp. So a lot of things are still going to happen when camp starts. So you got to look at it from that standpoint. But Reed Blankenship is going to be there. Sidney Brown's going to be right behind him. And Sidney Brown is definitely going to be on special teams. So I look for him to make some plays on special teams, like making tackles and causing turnovers on special teams. So I'm looking for that to happen. My number 3, Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith is the guy that raised the most eyebrows at camp. In OTAs, I'm sorry, not camp, but in OTAs. I heard a lot of stuff about he looks the part, he looks like a football player. Everybody looks like a football player, unless you just fat and out of shape. So, but it was coming from the right people, and I understand what that means. That means when you sight unseen, when you look at him, you're like, okay, this guy's going to be good. And then when you see him on the field running drills and going through all of that kind of stuff, you like what you see even more. And Nolan Smith seemed like he was that guy that everybody was taking notice about. So I think with all of the attention going to Jalen Carter, he's kind of going to sneak in the back door. Technically, none of these guys from Georgia can sneak by anybody. But what my point is that with all of the attention being on Nakobe Dean and Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, the attention is not going to be on somebody like Nolan Smith that slipped out and slipped down, and we kind of got lucky to get him, but we got him. Um, and I think not having all of that attention on him, I think that's going to do wonders for him. And I just think he's gonna come out and produce. I think we're going to put him in the right positions, and he's going to again turn some heads. And we're going to have a situation where our defense teams are going to have to find answers for us with the speed and the power we're going to have on that interior and on the edges. We are going to be dangerous again. So again, I don't think we're going to have as many sacks as we did last year because everybody got a year of seeing us on tape. We got a new defensive coordinator. We got new pieces on the board. So I would expect that Sean Desai is going to do some things differently. A lot of things are going to be the same, but we're not going to make the same mistakes. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think Nolan Smith, he's going to get a lot of attention when this year starts because we're going to be looking for him. So we know what his production was at Georgia, but how is that going to translate to Sundays? We shall see. But he's definitely on my list, as somebody to watch. And finally, Jalen Carter. And the reason why I list Jalen Carter as last is because we already know what his expectations are. We already know with him being the first pick from the Eagles and arguably the best prospect in the draft. Forget, the personal stuff that was going on. That doesn't erase what he does on the field. And now that some of that off the field stuff has settled down a little bit, it's probably going to rear its ugly head again sometime in the future. But the Eagles are aware of that, and I am positive that they probably have people in place to help with that. So Jalen Carter, he knows what his expectations are being the first pick and the biggest guy coming out of college on the defense. And some would argue that he was the guy coming out of college last year for the draft. He was the number one, scored, whatever score that they give, ranking they give, he was that guy. So that doesn't change. I think, again, he's in good veteran company. Fletch, BG, heck, even Bill Williams, who's a veteran but is still a young guy. That, can't discount that. That means a lot. When you have somebody that's considered a veteran, but he's only been in the league 2, maybe 3 years, so he knows the ropes. But the status is not that high, so you can keep the relationship more on an even level because you kind of the same age, especially when you're dealing with guys that came out early. So even though they've been in the league for 2, maybe 3 years, the age gap is not so big. So, but that helps in the relationship, being able to communicate with young players at their level. So, don't disregard that type of stuff. And once again, I'll keep beating this drum. Philadelphia has got we've got the reputation of being a destination team. With the way Sirianni's doing things, with the way Howie Roseman is doing things, and definitely with the way Jalen Hurts is playing and leading this team, this is where people want to come. And that spreads out to the whole roster. So there's a reason why people give up the bag to stay where they are. Everybody doesn't do that, especially in this era. Everybody's trying to get paid, rightfully so. You put your body on the line, get your money. But when you pass up that money, when you pass up the bag, the big payday, and you want to stay put in this city, that says something about the organization. And Jeffrey Lurie's put the organization in a good spot. Howie Roseman has taken that baton and continue to run with it and generate speed. And it looks like we finally figured out this formula of getting the best players at our position. And Howie being the Wizard of Philadelphia, what he's doing wheeling and dealing. And the funny thing is, everybody knows what Howie's doing, and he's still doing it. That means he's not trying to fleece nobody, but he's putting people in the best situation where, this is what we want. I know what you want. Let's make a deal. And people are shaking hands and making those deals. So whatever he's doing, number one, everybody can't do it, or they would be. And whatever talk he's talking to these other owners and GMs, they are listening and they like what he has to say, so he can continue to make these deals to make our team better. So whenever you can produce results like Roseman is producing, and everybody kind of knows what you're about, they see you coming. So all of the naysayers and people that want to throw shade at him, you can still do that. Everybody that he makes the deals with say the same thing, but he still makes the deals. So it's got to be able to work on both sides. It's not a one-sided street. If you want to make a deal, the person on the other side of the table has got to be willing to make the deal. So Howie knows he's got to do what he's got to do to make it, good for both parties. So, but, saying all that to say, back to Jalen Carter, he's the guy that we're going to watch. But my number one to watch, Nakobe Dean, Sidney Brown, Nolan Smith, and then Jalen Carter. So we had a good spot right now. Very interested, very excited to get to camp. I'm definitely going to try to get to camp at least one day this year. And we're in a good spot. We're definitely in a good spot. So, but that's all I got for right now. Like I said, I'm going to try to do this every Monday, right around 12:30. Let's just say 12:30. If I'm not there at 12:30, it'll be sometime in the 12 o'clock hours. Sometimes it may be a little bit earlier or later, depending on what my schedule is and what I'm doing. But I'm trying to be committed to doing this, a live stream, every Monday, talking about them birds. All right, I appreciate you. Please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and keep following me. Bring your friends. All right, I will see you guys next Monday. Peace.